What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Hopefully you had a good weekend. Overall, we had a lot of fun here. Actually, at the Spawncast, of course, Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check that out. Also talked about a really good Star Wars game that is coming to the Switch and the PS4 in, a few weeks, and didn't want anyone to really miss out on it if they were looking for a good Star Wars game, so we did a video on that as well, and talked a bit more about the PlayStation Cross versus X controversy. It kind of turned into kind of a funny situation. But today, though, we have a bunch of stuff to go over, including a bit of a change coming to the online service, and I kind of wanted to go a little bit more in depth about it and why it could either be a good thing or even a bad thing, depending on how Nintendo decides to handle that. And there is actually a call now, it seems anyway, for a Banjo Kazooie remaster, remake, possibly. We'll talk a bit about that as well. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. And get subscribed if you want to stay updated on all of the gaming news going on in the gaming world every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And we're actually going to start today with Pokemon Masters. Now, of course, Pokemon Masters launched on cell phones right at the end of August 29th, actually. It I think even went live like the day before for some weird reason. I don't know. It just popped up on the Apple store, and then it popped up on the Android Play Store. So I downloaded it, checked it out, and I was pretty much done after the first day. But it seems that quite a few people are at least sticking with it, and quite a few people are putting some money into it, because we did get a look at the first week revenue for this game, and it looks like it's second only to Pokemon Go's first week sales. Here's actually a chart that was put out, and yeah, you can see $26 million in its first week. That's good. That's really good, I would say. Pokemon Quest only did $3 million, and then we had Pokemon Magikarp Jump at $1 million, and then Pokemon Rumble Rush 300,000, with Pokemon Go, obviously massive success, $56 million in its first week. So what this tells us is they got another hit on their hand when it comes to earning money, recurring revenue going forward with a mobile game. It seems easy if you have the right IP and the right idea. The smaller games don't really pan out that well, it seems anyway. Like Dr. Mario has not had a good start at all, right? But these kind of games are about building over time, so we'll see with that one. But at least for Pokemon Masters, massive success right out of the gate. Also, we know Death Stranding, of course, coming out in November. The thing we don't know is, much about what the game is. Apparently, a Tokyo Game Show will find out more, as they're going to have an 80-minute presentation, which sounds like it could be interesting. Maybe let us know about what the game is exactly. We'll see, though. I'll keep you guys up to date on that. But something we did find out after Hideo Kojima tweeted this out, we will have a very easy mode. Now, according to Kojima, very easy mode is for anyone who just wants to experience the story and try to piece it all together and figure it out. Essentially, as he's saying, kind of watch a movie, and it seems like that's put in there because he's pointing out he's using, more Hollywood actors or people that may be recognized by people who don't just play video games. Norman Reedus is right there. So someone might want to check out the story without having to play through the game or get through some difficult boss battles. It sounds like it's just going to be like what was in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It was like the tourist mode, where it's not really even a game as much as this is just a movie, but I guess it's to the point maybe you'll be invincible, maybe you'll take very little damage. Hard to say. It's probably not a mode myself, or I'm sure many of you will touch, but for people who I guess don't play games but want to see what this weird convoluted story is and try to make sense of it, at least that mode's there. Oh, also NBA 2K20 came out last week, and the reviews on Steam are going about as well as I figured they would. This was set up for a massive review bombing. Let's be honest here. After that trailer they put out with the slot machine going and the prize wheel and the pachinko, it was destined for what is now an overwhelmingly negative response on Steam. And looking through a lot of the different reviews and comments that were left, it's mostly, this is a gambling simulator, you have some basketball, my gambling, all of those jokes. I've seen some people give it positive reviews, and the only negative that they took off for was, for some reason, there's basketball in this game of slot machines and chance. Those at least were more creative reviews, right? I mean, you still gave it a good score, but it was still at least funny. Not surprising to see this backlash after that trailer and everything that went on online. It's more or less going to come down to the sales. It sounds like at a UK, the sales are down about a third, but those are physical, and at this time, people usually buy digital. We'll see when the NPDs come out and any other sales numbers. But remember, it all comes down to the microtransactions in the game over time, not necessarily the initial $60. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We'll start with the Nintendo Online service. Now, of course, Super Nintendo games are now there for you to play. I was checking out Mario Kart, of course, online with Sean, and some tennis, and I started up Link to the Past again. I've beaten that game way too many times, but it's still really fun to start it up. But if you've missed any of those games, specifically things like Link to the Past, Yoshi's Island, Mario World, Breath of Fire, it's worth playing them. Honestly, start them up and you'll have a good time, especially if you enjoy RPGs. Try out Breath of Fire, see what you think. And we do expect more games to be added. Nintendo themselves have said, yeah, we're going to add more going forward, similar to the Nintendo games, but there's a bit of a catch. According to Business Insider, who managed to get a quote from a Nintendo representative, they will not be set on any type of schedule. Now, you might be wondering, wait, what do you mean set on a schedule? Was it set on a schedule before? Technically, yes. It was, every month we would expect a couple of games. It seemed like 2 or 3. But believe it or not, we kind of had an idea when they were going to be announced, and some people started to catch on to this when I would do things on Twitter like, hey, it seems like it's almost time for some new Nintendo games, right? That's because we pretty much all figured out that on the second Tuesday, around that time, somewhere in there, NES games will be announced, second Tuesday of every month. But now it looks like, according to Nintendo, they will not have a set schedule anymore. They will pretty much just release these things whenever they want. And that could be good or bad. And okay, so let's start with the bad. They could be doing this because they don't want to release a game every month or a few games every month, right? Maybe they want to skip, I don't know, maybe they want to skip January. There's like, I don't want to do any games in January, and they just kind of move past it. Or there's always the possibility, we'll go to the good side here, that they want to surprise and kind of drop a game every other week or something, Rather than do 2 to 3 games all at once on the same day, they drop a game after a week or two, then another game after a week or two, right? They still kind of keep the same amount, but it is erratic. It's out of any time, they just go, hey, Earthbound's on the Super Nintendo online app. Go play it. They could do that, right? They could drop a Mega Man game. They could drop anything, right? Their Chrono Trigger is now available, and then the app explodes in popularity all over again. That's very possible. So I would like to lean towards, okay, there's no set schedule because they just want to be able to drop these things whenever they want. Remember, it can be a Nintendo game or a Super Nintendo game. Maybe that's the other thing, is they don't want to have to group everything together all at once. Maybe they want to release a Nintendo game, next week. And then the week after they want to do a Super Nintendo game, or maybe they want to release one a week for a month and then none the next month. That's kind of the boat we're in right now. Here's the thing though, make sure you're subscribed because as the games get announced and everything, you'll see them here and you can plan out a good day. If they drop Chrono Trigger, that's something you should just spend the day playing because it is awesome, and if you missed it, it's worth checking out. That's a game, by the way, that I hope they drop right away and get that out there as soon as possible. Only other thing that would be better than that is if they start pulling games from Japan and have them translated, but most likely from what we saw with NES, that's not going to happen, but I guess you never know. They could also go get some of the more expensive games like we talked about on the Spawncast, so something like, Metal Warriors, stuff like that. But here's hoping the irregular schedule is actually a good thing, but we'll see. Next up, let's talk about Banjo Kazooie. He's in Smash. Everyone was super excited when he got announced. The popularity spiked big time. It spiked in Japan even. People were searching for Banjo Kazooie. People were even searching for Xbox after we had Sakurai himself say, hey guys, go play Banjo Kazooie on the Xbox. I think most people in Japan were like, what's an Xbox? And then they search for it. Is that Blu-ray player that we see at the store every day? Yeah. So I think at this point, Banjo is ready for in one way, I guess, a remaster, a remake, a rebirth, if you will. It's time. I think most people are excited enough and looking to buy into a Banjo Kazooie game. And that's actually something that others are talking about, including the creator of the character himself. Steve Mails actually wrote in a VGC column, Video Game Chronicles column, that now Banjo Kazooie have returned in Smash Bros. Ultimate. I've been surprised by the reception. Part of it is being away for so long, and part of it is returning to a Nintendo console, and maybe just a small part because they are decent characters. Could the reaction of fans to Banjo and Kazooie in Smash persuade Microsoft to make another Banjo game? The revival of Spyro and Crash went pretty well after all. I think a fairly safe way to gauge demand for a new game would be a remaster of the original two. And I 100% agree with this, mostly because it worked with Spyro and Crash. Did you know Activision at this point, I've talked about this before, is looking into new games in those series because, well, Crash Insane Trilogy did tremendously well. That sold over 10 million copies by now, by the way. 10 million copies for Crash getting that remaster. Isn't that's crazy, right? Spyro has done really well with the Reignited Trilogy, and I think Banjo could fit right in there on that kind of that same level if it's done with quality. Those are two games, Reignited Trilogy and then Crash Insane Trilogy. Those were done with high levels of quality. They look great, right? But they still have the same feel as the original games. And I think if we can do this with Banjo, I think it'll sell well. Now, others have been unsure. For example, Grant Kirkhope was pretty vocal about being unsure if this is something Microsoft would really look into because they have massive projects, right? We're talking about like a Banjo remaster, and they're working with like cloud services and talking about billions and billions of dollars. And he's saying more or less it might be like a drop in the bucket to them, that they're not as like, gung-ho about doing it because it might just be a couple, it might just sell a couple million copies, who cares? But I do think Banjo is a draw right now, and Microsoft wants that Japan crowd. Well, Sakurai just said, hey, go play Banjo. So there's probably about to be a bunch of people in Japan who have never played Banjo who are about to go try it on the Xbox because of that. Seriously, it was trending on Twitter after he said it. So I think it's time. Let's make it happen. Come on, Microsoft, do something good here. Do a Banjo Kazooie remaster of the older ones, and then after that sells, because I think it will, let's get on to a new one. I think it's time for what we call it, 3? I don't know what we even call it. Next up, let's talk about a way you might be able to play PlayStation 4 games on your PC in the next like 5 or 6 years, most likely, to be honest. Although it sounds like the development is speeding along fairly well. And this surprised me a bit. It's a compatibility layer that's currently being worked on. This was a full article write-up, and they have a GitHub and everything that's completely open source for anyone who wants to help develop for it and work with it. Can help. But this one caught me off guard a bit because it sounds like a really neat idea. It's just how long will it take to actually complete? And this project is called PS4 Delta. It's a compatibility layer. So think of like Wine, for example, but it would be tasked to run PlayStation 4 games on your PC. Now, the whole thing about a compatibility layer is it would have access to high-level emulation rather than low-level emulation. So that means rather than trying to like imitate a PS4 completely, it would actually take kind of the PS4 calls and make them compatible with Windows. And because the PS4 supports, it's x86, it is much more suited for that. And that seems to be what they're working with here for PS4 Delta. So in a perfect world, they get to the finish line. It's all open source, by the way, so they're writing this seemingly from scratch and everything, so it probably wouldn't get shut down because of that. We'll see, though, with Sony. You never know, right? Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, you never really know what they're going to do here. But in a perfect world, you get to the finish line, and yeah, you can play PS4 games on your PC. Now, of course, getting them from Blu-ray disc to your computer without a Blu-ray drive, well, you're gonna have to figure that one out, unless you have a Blu-ray drive, in which case I guess you just pop it in and play. But this is a really cool project. I think it's gonna take a while. Apparently they've been able to load files from the PS4 through it and everything, but they're not playing games. Like, they're not playing God of War on their PC, not yet anyway. And honestly, we might be into the midway through the PS5, Xbox Scarlet generation before we're even seeing stuff pop up on screen, but it's a cool project and it's something to keep an eye on. And our last bit of news, let's talk about kind of a set of covers that look really, really cool. They were announced for PlayStation. It's like the only on PlayStation collection. I will say, unfortunately, for now anyway, it's only in the UK, but there's something I hope happens that we'll go over here in a second, but let's talk a bit about what this is. So here is an image of the different cover arts and stuff. They put out a little trailer and everything for it. It's kind of like if they did a greatest hits of all of their games, but it's just the only on PlayStation collection. These range in prices from like $20 to $30. They're kind of all over the place with the pricing, but they look really, really cool. They have this minimalistic look to them, and they actually have quite a few. They have Bloodborne, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank, Shadow of the Colossus, Last Guardian, Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4, and then Wipeout Omega Collection. I really like that. The Ratchet and Clank one looks really cool, by the way. I mean, the Spider-Man one, sure, that's Spider-Man, but for something about the Ratchet and Clank one, I think looks really, really neat. I like the minimalistic look. Here's the only issue, like I said, it's only in the UK. So what I hope happens is that someone scans these cover arts and we can print them out, because that's all I kind of really like here are the different cover arts. But either way, really, really neat to see this. Kind of a celebration of their only on PlayStation stuff, and they're all good sellers anyway and good games. So unless they bring them over, I guess we'll have to wait. If you're not in the UK, if you're in the UK, go take a look at your favorite one. But if not, we'll probably have to wait for cover art to come out, somebody scan it and then, digitize and clean it up and everything, and then put it out. But yeah, the Ratchet and Clank one is definitely what I'm looking at. That one looks really cool. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one is from Lee K, saying, some companies spend a fortune on marketing. Sony just asked what people call an X, and everyone is talking about it. A PR dream. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes the best campaigns are the ones that are generally accidentally started on social media. I don't know if they thought it was going to happen like that, where everyone's talking about, people are talking about it like crazy right now. They're looking through instruction manuals to see if they can find examples of Sony or a company using X instead of cross, and some examples have been found on either side. So it almost feels like back even in like the mid to late 90s, like third parties weren't even really sure if it was an X or a cross, which is kind of funny to think about. But Sony said it's a cross, so all right, fine. But that's the best marketing campaign. You don't really have to pay for it, right? And then everyone's talking about it, and it just gets passed around, and everyone's looking at the controller that you then want to sell them. So yeah, that's the best way to do it. I assume that's why places like, Wendy's and stuff are more fun on Twitter and everything. But it was at least a fun conversation to have over the weekend and on Twitter. And honestly, I don't know if people are taking it that seriously. It's just, people are just having fun. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Nintendo's change to the online service to where they'll be more erratic with their releases, more irregular. I won't be able to guess them at this point when they're coming out. So you'll just have to stay tuned in here, right? So you can see when they get announced and our take on it and everything. Let me know if you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. See if Nintendo gets more stingy with them or they start putting out more. We'll see about that one. And then, do you think it's time for that Banjo Kazooie remaster or remake, or just a flat out new game? Are we just gonna go 3E on this thing? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.